We are back to talk about fashion. And we have been raising the fact that this industry is facing a huge issue with the impact on the environment. And so it's always an issue for the end consumer to get the right information and to get the help they are expected to receive when it comes to how can I buy not only the best fashion items, but also the most sustainable, or at least be aware of what I buy. So we are very pleased to welcome on stage, and remotely we will have two amazing panelists as well, to welcome today for this panel, which is called How to Choose the Best Sustainable, let's say, Fashion Items. So let me invite on stage Fatou Ndiaye, founder of the association The Wonders. Welcome, Fatou.
Thank you.
Let me invite now Jean-Baptiste CEAUX, Director of Operation of Sourcemap Europe. Thanks a lot. As well, Augustin FIRINO MARTELL, Fashion Luxury Traceability and CSR Manager of Crystalchain. Thanks, Augustin. Thanks for coming. And also, remotely, very pleased to have with us Vanessa Jacobs, CEO of the Restory, based in London, and also Laure, co-founder of Fairly Made. Thanks for joining. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Stephanie. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I guess if you're here, it's because you're interested in fashion and you want to know how to pick the best fashion item. And that's the reason why we're here today with this amazing panel. But the way we will answer this question, we will have to start by understanding what is best. Because back in the day, when we used to talk about best, we used to think about the best aesthetics, or the luxury one, or the pricey one. However, nowadays, when we talk about what is the best fashion item, we actually think about what is the most sustainable in terms of environmental sustainability, but also social sustainability. A recent study revealed that a third of global consumers are willing to pay more for sustainable products. Actually, sustainability is one of the top criteria when buying a product. That means that when you think about fashion nowadays, we have to think about sustainability. Consumers are demanding, sorry. All right, do you hear me? I actually prefer the mic. I think it's cooler, right? So consumers are demanding for sustainability, but they cannot have the information without the brands. We need the brands to be more transparent about the way they work. To discuss this amazing topic today, I have the luck to be surrounded by these four experts, these four change makers who are creating a new way to do sustainability, but also a new way to select what are the best fashion items. To start this conversation, I would like to ask a question to Vanessa. So Vanessa, she is the founder of Restory. Vanessa, what do you think is the key for the consumers to be educated to understand what is the best fashion item?
Thanks for having me. I actually lived in Geneva for a couple of years in the early noughts, so it's a bit of a second home. And I'm sorry I can't be with you today, but I'm very happy to be part of this panel. I guess I would go back to where. Sorry, there's a little bit of an echo. I guess I would go back to your concept of best, and so our raison d'etre is to make aftercare as much part of the fashion experience as buying to begin with. And so part of what we don't do is we don't consider ourselves the arbiters of fashion. we are there to preserve your personal style, whatever that would be. And I guess our approach to what would be best is to encourage consumers to really work to define their personal style and shop in a way that fulfills that type of communication, that message, that expression of yourself that you're trying to get out. And we think if you invest in doing that, then you will buy the right pieces, and you will stop the kind of emotional spending and the things that kind of lead to a more kind of wasteful environment. Now, that's the consumption side. On the other side, of course, we are, unlike some of our fellow panelists, we are not involved in the kind of pre-purchase side of the circular chain. We're on the post-purchase side. So of course they are connected, and one should be looking for good materials and should be looking for brands who have good control over their supply chains. But also those who offer circular offerings into their value proposition.
So what I understand from what you're saying is, as consumers, we have to be educated in our lifestyle and our style, understanding which is the style that speaks the best to us, but also understanding, based on that style, what is the best fashion item that matches me. Because if the product is desirable for me, I will buy it and I will keep it forever. And then I will try to repair it, restore it when it's at the end of its life, so that I can give it another life. So it's really interesting what you talk about, because you're talking about the life of the fashion item, but also the post-life. What will be interesting, maybe, is to go back to the beginning of the life of the product and understanding better the supply chain that brings us all these fashion items. To do that, I'm lucky because I have 3 persons that are experts in supply chain in fashion. Before we get started on asking you questions, I would like to ask you something. Can you, each of you, pitch your company in 1 minute, sharing with us what makes your company so unique in transforming the way brands are either working on improving their supply chain or communicating to the consumer? Would you be happy to do that with me? Awesome. You want to start, Augustin?
Okay. So hello everyone. Thank you, Fatou, for moderating this panel. I'm in charge of fashion and luxury activities at Crystalchain. Crystalchain is a company based in Paris, founded in 2016. We are experts in the implementation of traceability and transparency solutions based on blockchain technology. So our mission is to support fashion and luxury brands and their supply chain partner in the sustainable and responsible transition. So by doing this, we help them to first control their brand image and enhance the brand image, and second, to comply with regulations. So we are experts in implementing this type of solutions. Thanks to, I would say, our experience. We have the experience of implementation, several years of implementation, and experience in a lot of industries. So we work in the leather, we work in the mohair, in the cashmere, in the silk industry, in the wool, of course, and in other synthetic and natural fibers.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much. I'll have a lot of questions for you, but I'll keep them for later. Thank you. Jean-Baptiste, can you tell us about Sourcemap, please?
Yes, Sourcemap was founded 12 years ago at MIT by the founder, Leonardo Bonanni, who couldn't make it today. But we are an end-to-end supply chain mapping and due diligence software. We basically help our client do 4 things. The first one, which is the most important when you start investigating the supply chain, is what we call the supply chain, the supplier's discovery. The furthest possible, so down to the mill, to the farm, or to the mine.
Okay.
After doing this, the second thing that we do is that we help them identify the risks that can be in the supply chain. The risks can be exposure to deforestation, exposure to fraud, forced labor, but also business continuity. And we've seen that during COVID when we didn't know why things wouldn't arrive. The third thing that we do is we help them measure the risk. And this is done by collecting the right data. the data must be clear, it must be objective, and it must be verifiable. Otherwise, there's no use having the data. And the data, obviously, that you would need to gather to see if there is deforestation is not the same data that you would need to gather if you're trying to identify fraud. And the last thing that we do, and back to the point that Augustin was making, is that we help companies monitor these risks over time, year on year, and we help them address what the regulations can ask them, whether in the US recently with the UFLPLO or in the upcoming Green Deal in Europe. And so just to finish and come back to your point on how to best choose the fashion item, what is really important and at the core of this is the relation of trust between the consumer and the brand. And a lot of greenwashing has been done with claims that were not backed by anything. And really the supply chain mapping and the data gathering is here to rebuild this trust and to give the brands the ability to back their claim with actual facts.
Brilliant. So you're helping to...
Of competition this afternoon, and I don't want to lose the battle. So would you mind to speak a little bit louder in order for all of us to better understand and above all listen to all what you say? Thank you very much. So let's win this battle.
Okay. This is a challenge. I love it. Thank you so much, and thank you very much, Jean-Baptiste. Laure, can you tell us about Fairly Made?
Yeah, with pleasure. Can you hear me loud enough?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Let's win the battle. So yeah, after being a buyer for fashion brands, like from the mass market to the luxury one, we co-founded with my associate Fairly Made 5 years ago. So basically, we have developed an online tool supporting fashion brands into their sustainability journey. So concretely, we help brands to progress on the knowledge of their supply chain, to measure the impact of their product thanks to LCA analysis, and to communicate very easily to their final consumers. So today we are a team of 40 people, like textile engineers, developers, traceability analysis, to empower brands such as LVMH Group, SMCP Group, BETSCH, Rossignol, Obad. So basically we treat textile and leather. And we work hand in hand with like CSR managers, production directors, developers, to improve their impact of their product. So thank you very much for the invitation, and I look forward for your interesting questions.
Thank you so much, Laure. Talking about questions, so I have my first question. There is one thing in common between your three companies is data. What you're saying is to be able to build that trust, that transparency, we need to get access to the right data. But it's very hard because, as you said, supply chains in the fashion industry are huge. So how do you make sure, one, you collect the right data, and second, you can actually go back and verify that data? Augustin, how do you do that? How do you collect the data?
What is key, as you said, in traceability and transparency, is of course collecting information on the whole supply chain. It means if you want to have a precise traceability on which you can rely on, you need to collect the information from where it is generated. This means to collect...
From where it is?
Generated. It means you have to collect the information directly from the actors involved in your supply chain. So this is one of the first key topics. Collect the data from where it is generated. Okay, now, how can you have trust to the information you collect? And I think you want me to talk about blockchain on this topic.
You can.
Okay, as a brand, you've collected information on your supply chain. You know the origin of your product. You are the social audits to your traceability. You enhance your traceability with animal welfare information, other social information, environmental data information. But if you want to have, so one of the key principles is that you can only control and improve what you can measure. And this is where we use blockchain. So the principle of blockchain is that an information recorded in the blockchain is immutable, is timestamped, and auditable. So when a stakeholder in your supply chain records an information in the blockchain, is made accountable for the information he is recording. Okay. And so the other actors that will use this information will have trust in the recorded information. Okay, and I think this is really key to have a trusted data source, particularly in the fashion industry, with fragmented international value chains, particularly where the sustainable value of the product is not visible.
All right. Do you have an example to share with us?
For
example, a real story. Like today, I'm wearing I don't know, leather boots.
Okay,
what would be the story of collecting the data there?
We talked a lot about cashmere, so I will share an example on the really high-end cashmere supply chain we worked on. In the beginning of the chain, we work with herder in Asia. So from the herders, we collected information regarding the collection of the fibers from the goats. So as this is not digitized entities, herders are nomad people. So we collected information through an SMS system we put in place. Okay, they don't have access to computers. They cannot provide you an Excel with the production information. So with an SMS system, we were able to collect this information, and then the information was recorded in the blockchain. Then downstream of the supply chain, you have the combing mills, you have the spinners, and you have the garment manufacturers. So from them, we collect basically the cleaning of the fiber, the transformation of the fiber into finished products, into yarn, and then the knitting of the yarn to produce your garments. So at the end, so this is more digitalized factories. So we work on based in Europe, some of them in Asia. We collect information basically thanks to the ERP system or through Excel. But at the end, you have what can you say? You know the origin of your products and the entities involved. Okay, it's good, but it's not enough. It's not enough. Why? Because you want to protect from a brand image damage, or you want to comply with regulations. So you need to know more. So we add to this traceability, so we enhance this traceability with specific information, and for this we implied third-party auditors and quality laboratories. So at the end we perform social audits, we collect specific environmental information, and at the end, so we have the origin, we have the entities involved, and we have social KPIs, we have the environmental impact of your productions, and then your supply chain is much more mastered, and you can rely on, and you can then use this information to safely communicate to your consumer with, you keep the ball from the door, let's say.
And far from greenwashing, like we were saying
exactly
before, because we have the proof. However, the issue that I see is that there is a lot of data to be collected, and the people who are actually sharing the data, that's not their job. They're headers, they're nomadic people. So how do we incentivize them? How do you push them, convince them to share the data? Because without the data, first of all, you don't have a company. And second of all, we don't know what to buy in terms of products, right? So Jean-Baptiste, how do you convince a header, a farmer, to share with you all that data?
Your question is very important because obviously the regulation will first hit the big companies and the brands, but as a trickling down effect, everyone in the supply chain will have to provide data. And this is really a cost for everyone, but including for the people in the supply chain who don't necessarily have the capacity, the time, or the access to the technology. If you think that a global brand have more or less, say, 10,000 suppliers, with this new need to go get the data, you will have, about 100 megabyte by suppliers that has to be collected, and for your overall suppliers, a terabyte by year. So you need to have a technology that is both able to manage this amount of data, and second, coming back to where you get the data, a technology that is able to collect the data with the people on the field, these people not always having access to computers, Excel spreadsheet, and so on and so forth. Sometimes they just have a telephone. So what is important is to adapt the way you collect your data to the field. It can be a photo, it can be a PDF, it can be an Excel spreadsheet. The farmers sometimes go to the cooperative, and then the cooperatives go to the traders. Everyone has different information system, so you have to be able to get this data, make them evenly readable, and then you have to be able to use them, and the companies need to have to be able to get this data in their ERPs. So Sourcemap has this platform that enables everyone from the farmers to the cooperative to the trader to collect this data, and then we can push this data either directly in blockchain technology in the ERPs of our clients, or also third parties, for example, who are able to calculate carbon footprint. So that's the way that the data is collected and how it's used, basically.
So just to go back to the question that you didn't answer. So I recently went to Mongolia to study cashmere and see the herders and the goats. And they didn't have an iPhone, they didn't have a phone, they had a landline. And for sure, they will not have the right tool to be able to share the data, but also seeing them, I would not think they will take the time to do it. So how do you really convince them to take the time?
Sorry, yes. The important thing is to build a real relationship with the supplier. Because obviously, if they just receive an email and they have to answer, please answer, provide us with this data, and if you don't do that, we're going to punish you, pushing you out of our supply chain, it is not going to work. The core of the success is to create a relationship and explain to the suppliers why they would benefit from doing so. And the brands, in building a relationship and in trying to provide an amelioration of the situation of the suppliers, will manage to do this.
Yes, Augustin?
I'd like to just continue this discussion with Jean-Baptiste. So what we can see, so generally we support brand CSR strategies. And what we can observe is that, as you said, you work as partnership, brands work as partnership with the suppliers. So we see, as we say, supplier portfolio strategies that help really to build their sustainable strategy in the supply chains, meaning that you have only identified suppliers that you know precisely, and so you put aside what we call the reverse auctions. So you give visibility, as an incentives. You also give business visibility to your suppliers because you know them. You know that in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you will order them the same amount of cashmere or other materials. And then, thanks to this kind of strategy, it helps them to, it allows these suppliers to be onboarded easily. And you have other incentives that you could provide. We can, talked about this, but you have the money, of course, the business visibility, which is, I think, key, and also giving. As you said, we collect a lot of data on the supply chains, and sometimes the partners want to know what do you do with my with my products, yes. And it's very important to also give the visibility of the life cycle of also your partners. It's not only important for the brands to know the life cycle of the product, but also for the suppliers to know, what has been done, what is the quality of my products, so what it allows to create. So I think all of this allows to create an ecosystem and to work as partnership also with your suppliers. And it's key to build, your a real sustainable journey.
So it's really about building an ecosystem and creating a trusted relationship between each person that are part of the supply chain, and also giving them what they really need. Either it's visibility, either it's money, depending on the kind of incentives that will work for your partner. Is that correct?
Yes, and you would be surprised that the further you go down the supply chain, so the closest you are to the field, people are extremely happy when they know that, for example, they are in a program to fight deforestation for a major brand, for example.
So being part of the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Because as a little partner at the end of the supply chain, we tend to forget them. And us as consumer, we don't really think about them. Like we wear boots, leather boots, and we're not thinking, oh, it's actually a herder that has taken care of the cow for years and years. We don't think about that. We just see the product. So it's actually important for us as consumer to have this awareness on the other side of who is actually not making my clothes, but providing all the raw materials that we need to create the clothes. Laure, I know that at Fairly Made, you also work a lot on traceability. What kind of challenges do you see in terms of sharing the information with the brands?
First, I would like to explain our process before going into the challenges. So our platform as Fairly Made focus on products. So the first step is to connect to the information system of the brands. So basically we connect to the PLMs, and this is where we get the data of the products that needs to be analyzed. So basically it's the name of the product, the composition, and at least it's between 1 and 2 suppliers per product. Generally, brands know tier 1 and tier 2. And after 1 season of working with a brand, we multiply by 3 the number of suppliers that they know. So imagine that a brand starts by knowing 100 suppliers. They will know 300 suppliers in average after working with us for 1 season. So then we get the information from the supplier, and I agree with what you said. Information need to be taken at the source, and we are sending questionnaires straight to the point. They are not too long, and the experience is important to be like quite good for them, because as you said, it's additional time for them, and they're not always paid for that. And we at Fairly Made often like challenge ourselves to make this factory experience also very like flawless. And to reply about the challenge for us, really in the traceability, it's becoming complex when you are having traders in between the steps. So the traders, most of the time, they are afraid that, like for instance, tier 2 would like to directly deal with tier 4. And like tier 2 is tier 3, and like we feel that this is changing like from 1 year to another, and our reply to get like better rates or like to make them sign some non-disclosure agreements, so it helps. The second thing, as you said, also is the consistency of the data. You mentioned it already, but we receive many information through these questionnaires, and we review the quality of the information we get. This is an important work. We cross-check different databases to verify the scope of the certificate, and to give brands a global view of their supply chains. And here it's more dedicated to production directors for them to monitor all their suppliers and like take the right decisions. And the last point, I think that we often see that impact is not where brands think it is. And I have a concrete example of a brand that I was working with. They spent like so much time trying to change just a percentage of pullover that was a basic pullover for them. It was in conventional polyester. They put it in recycled polyester. And with our tool, they realized that this was what was changing everything. So it's very important to get this view on the supply chains, to know exactly where the impact is the largest, and to be able to put the right lever in place.
Thank you so much, Laure. And that does make sense indeed. So the more data we collect, the more information we have, the cleaner the data is, the closer to the source the data is from, the better actually the companies can make the decision that can help improve the impact. Either it's environmental, we're talking about deforestation, it could be social. I know that you guys work a lot also on the topics of slave labor, modern slavery and child labor. So having access to the information help understanding where companies can actually make changes. If we go back to you, Vanessa, we talked a lot about the supply chain, but we never include circular economy, or rarely do, within the supply chain. Do you think that a company like Restory should be actually part of the original supply chain? So we were talking about the headers. Should we go all the way into talking about the person who's going to repair the bag or the leather jacket in a few years?
Yes, I do. If I may, can I just introduce the Restory? Explain what we do. It might seem like a pure consumer proposition, but actually we are a B2B play. So the Restory is an aftercare and infrastructure platform that is designed to enable the world's largest fashion brands to incorporate aftercare into their circular strategy. Of course, at the quality that they need to trust, at the scale that they need to be able to make the impact, but also in a way that enables the owner to design an experience that's unique to their brand. So we do this at the moment for Farfetch, Manolo Blahnik, Nicholas Kirkwood, Selfridges, Harrods, Harvey Nichols, Brown Thomas, and Are Not in Ireland. To answer your question specifically, yes, of course, we do believe that aftercare is part of a post-purchase circular trifecta, so resell, rental, and repair. And we, of course, believe that we are the most fundamental kind of corner of that trifecta, because ultimately what post-purchase circular fashion is about extending desirable life. So yes, we do believe that in the beginning, that products should be designed on a materials basis, on a design basis, and in other ways that are taking into consideration what happens after the purchase. So more and more consumers are going to expect the people that they invest. The brands that they invest in to take more of a role in helping them manage the life cycle of that product, be it from the extension of desirable life to selling on to being able potentially to rent things, and of course at the end of life proposition as well. So I think all of that is, it is part of I'm kind of drawing a distinction between post-purchase and pre-purchase, but it is actually all part of the same chain. And I was thinking when you were talking about data as well, and we the way that we operate is a managed marketplace. So we try to find the creme de la creme of cobblers, shoe blacks, seamstresses, etc., in each of the markets that we operate. And part of what we do is every product that comes into us, we are taking into account not only product data, so what's the material, what's the color, what's the construction methodology, but also what are the wear patterns and what are the consumer preferences, particularly with regard to aftercare. Are they somebody who's quite practical, just fix that little thing, to make it brand new? So we put all of that into an engine that helps us to scale a traditionally very hard to scale industry. And also part of what we are doing is collecting data on the people that are in our own. Sorry, I have a cat joining me. To the people who are effectively our supply chain. So we make sure that the people who work in those shops are paid living wages, that they are that they've got kind of good working practices, etc. So I think it's there's a lot of data to be kind of collected on the other side of this equation as well, and potentially there's an opportunity to stitch that up at some point in the future. I do think also I was at the Venice Sustainable Fashion Forum last week, and a big part of the conversation around data was the standards with which, what are the standards to collect this data so that it's consistent, and everything that everybody on this panel is trying to do. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it for those who are on the other side of this. purchase?
Yes, I'm also quite intrigued about the answer of that question. And I think the topic that you're raising is a topic of regulation, of rules, of the new laws that are coming into the market, because fashion is an industry that is rapidly changing. And luckily, we have a lot of new regulations that are coming into place in the future. Augustin, can you tell us about the next 2 or 3 regulations coming either for European or for the whole worldwide fashion industry?
Yeah, indeed, regulation is at the moment a huge driver for, let's say, this little sustainability changes. So we see at the moment with our customers a circular economy law in France that is really pushing a lot of brands on the topic of collecting information on the supply chains. We have new regulation regarding the environmental scoring of the product and then displaying this environmental information to the end customer. So we have 2 laws coming, one in France and the second for the EU. Regarding the EU, we have also a regulation regarding imported deforestation, regarding forced labor. In the US also we have a regulation regarding forced labor. We talked about also together, Jean-Baptiste, a regulation in Germany that also is pushing forward the sustainability. What is key in this regulation is that the proof is at the end. So it's the brands have to prove that they are compliant with regulation, whereas usually it's to the institution to prove that there is a fault on it. So regarding this regulation, I think what is key, I think 2 key topics. The first one is that he's saying to all the brands, this is the kind of data, this is the kind of information you will have to collect on your supply chain. So at the moment we have a law called AGEC in France. So it's only a few informations regarding traceability, regarding the specificities of the products, like really little information. But it's just warning all the brands, saying, okay, in the future you will have to collect a lot more if you want to really present a sustainable, the sustainability of your products. And the second key point is that it is standardization of the information you will provide to the consumer. So at the moment we see that a lot of us we are building a traceability system. Some of the brands use this traceability or part of the traceability information to display to the consumer, and they add some pictures, they add some little saying regarding what they are doing, which is very good. But now we will have kind of a frame where all the brands will be on the same page and will have to display the same type of information. And I think it is key, really it is key for consumer experience and consumer buying, and particularly awareness. I think we're going back a bit on our topic of today of how to choose the best fashion items.
Yes, indeed, because nowadays it's quite hard based on the different certifications, labels. Each brand are saying that they're sustainable, but are they really? Do we really know? We don't know. So it is true that having rules that say this is the way you should share the information, each and every company will have to follow the same rule, will help each and every consumer really pick the right topic. But so those new rules are going to change the way brands do things. But how can they adapt? What do you think? Like, it's going to be very hard for them. They will need to maybe have new departments created within a company to take care of that. They will have to work on their communication in a different way. How do you help them do that? How do you help them shift with the new rules?
It's very interesting. Is it working? Yeah. It's very interesting. You're right. Companies used to come and see us for CSR or ESG purposes. Obviously, with the COVID crisis, a lot more came for business continuity purposes, why things are not going well in my supply chain. And to your point, with the new regulations at the national level in Europe, at the European level or in the US, compliance is going to be key. So it used to be in silos or not used by everyone, but now across companies, this is going to be an issue or something to take care of. So how can we help them? At the moment, the laws are not fully ready yet. They are being discussed. some laws are already out. In the US, there is the UFLPA that was enforced in June. And for example, at Sourcemap, we very quickly, as soon as the technical details of the law were issued, designed a product that helped company to give exactly the information that they need to the CBP, to the borders of the US. So that's what we're trying to do also in Europe. Yet, without an answer of how things are going to be exactly in Europe, the things what we help them do is put in right the best practice. And the best practice is what you need to do in order to make sure that you're not going to miss the target when it's applied. So knowing your supply chain, all the suppliers, getting the right data and doing the right reporting. If you have all this in place, and if you adopt the right, the best-in-class sort of practice for yourself and for your suppliers, then you know that you will at least meet the regulation standards when they come. But you have to start doing it now, because it's going to come very fast, 2025, which means that basically by the end of 2023, you will have to be able to know what you need to collect in 2024 to start reporting in 2025.
And that's good for business, right?
Well, you know,
but your business.
It is good, yet, and I think everyone will agree with me here, it's not something you can do in 3 months. Anyone who will tell you, I'll map your supply chain and I'll help you identify the risk and I will help you monitor the risk in 3 months, is not serious. It is something that you do over 2 or 3 years. The first year, you're going to just discover things you didn't know were in your supply chains, and then you will improve. The important thing is to fix a goal for yourself and do it step by step.
Yes, completely agree. And I think also there is an opportunity for brands to be pioneers, to be the first and the best in class, to show the way to other brands, and by being accompanied by each of you, but also by communicating properly with the consumers, they can take that position as leaders. And I need to wrap up, but I would like to have maybe a last questions. First to Laure, regarding communication and branding. So if you just can answer quite quickly, but we see that brands have to change, they have to communicate differently. How do you advise them to communicate on that traceability, on that transparency?
Yeah, so we start by working with the CSR management team, then the production teams, to show them where in the supply chains are their impact and how can they improve these impacts. And then the last block is to speak with the marketing and communication team. So they also have access to our platforms and they can download directly some QR codes of the product. And to explain you our work, I'm going to share my screen. So tell me if you can see my screen here. With Mage product, you see it in this really nice code?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a code from Mage. And so here, if you click here or in shops, the same is that you can like scan the QR code, which is on the hang tag. You have information about this product. So this is like the visible part for the final client. So we start with the traceability. So here, for instance, we started by knowing only one supplier, which was the manufacturing units, and we help brands, the Mage, to get to the raw material stage. Then we provide information about the traceability. So here you can see the chain. You can choose which chain you want to see. So here I'm clicking on the polyester one. And you can see where, in which country are the different steps and what are the certifications related to each of the steps. So the idea is to give the consumer as many information as they want. And so the second thing is to see the environmental impact. So this is the result of a LCA analysis. So you can see here the CO2, the water pollution, and the non-renewable energy. And in the end, you have a block that the brand can adapt to speak about their own engagement. So here, Maj decided to speak about the recyclability.
Wow, that's brilliant.
Can you see me? Yeah,
Yes.
okay, I'm back. So this is actually the visible part of the iceberg, but a lot of our work is like what is behind the scene. So this is the part visible for the final consumer, but the brands in-house, they have like a whole vision about their product's impact and about their supplier view. So the idea is to provide an end-to-end like a tool for brands to improve their impact and also communicate easily to their final consumers.
That's brilliant because with all this information you just shared, now I can really buy the right product knowing this is the best fashion item, which is the reason why we're here today, right? To answer the question. But then one important thing about picking the best fashion item is desirability. So my last question to you, Vanessa, is one that I'm interested personally in is, what is your best fashion item?
Two things. So I have a watch that my husband gave me for my 40th birthday present, and I joke with my children that I love it more than I love them. Of course, that's not true. And I'm a big fan of just any Gucci loafer. I just feel like they go with everything. So I definitely get my 100 wears out of every pair.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And I think that's a great way to wrap up this conversation. And my last question is for each of you. What is your best fashion item? Because I think that's the reason why we're here today. We need to think about buying with conscience, buying knowing what is the story of our product, where does it come from, who made it, but also what does it mean for the future? How long will it last? Will I give it to my kids? Even if I prefer the watch, maybe I'll give it to them one day, you know? So let's think about all of that next time we buy a fashion item. Thank you very much to my amazing panelists and have a great day.
Maybe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Maybe before we end this conversation, let's maybe take one or two questions in the audience, if you have. Hold on. No, it's me. Sorry. So let's take now because it's recorded, so we need to listen to your question.
C'est pas fair play. C'est pas fair play.
Here we go.
Okay, thank you. I just was out shortly. I missed perhaps the important 3 minutes. My beloved fashion item would be a product which has a kind of traceability coin, like a QR code, where I can put my smartphone and I can read from where the fiber is coming, from where the fabric is coming, if it's done by people in good life conditions, work conditions, and paying wages, light wages, and so on, all this way. This was my question to you all guys, because you are very good in tracing and sampling and collecting data. So I think it would be a very short way to go to this item which is on every garment in the end, where I can check really the whole way, and I would be as a consumer super happy and fulfilled with trust and belong to a community to have this kind of item.
Thank you so much for the question.
I think there's the good news is that regulation is coming up, as you said earlier, that each product will very soon have to have percentage of recyclability. But thinking ahead on the European level, we think about digital passport for products, and this digital passport will have obvious information for the consumer that can be about recyclability, but also energy, impact, carbon print, and all the elements that are related to environment and environmental and social information. Augustin, I don't know what you think.
Yeah, definitely. I think indeed you introduced yourself saying maybe you lost the wrong 3 minutes, but exactly. We talk regard.
What is very important is that the data is the right data. At the moment, we work a lot on industry data average and databases that are not always up to date. So even like people currently communicating on this sort of information don't really give a good information to consumers. So really the data and the collection of data will be important.
Is there any additional questions?
Can I?
Oh,
Yes,
sure.
I think also, yes,
Yeah,
Vanessa.
Please.
I was just going to add that, kind of going back to kind of joining up the two sides of the purchase, I think that a lot of the digital ID companies are also starting to think about post-purchase and what happens after that and incorporating it into the information that they provide to the end customer. So even if it's, if it's being bought secondhand, who repaired it, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that, that picture for the end customer becomes, has the opportunity to become very, very rich indeed.
If I may, this time I will ask one of my questions. I do have plenty because it's a critical topic, and what you just raised, Vanessa, is so true. Right now, many companies developing solutions for traceability and transparency are thinking about information about the product, about the sales history or the maintenance, but not really, and I asked the question just before, not really, by embedding into these utility NFTs, a lot of, transparency when it comes to material sourcing and so on. And I truly think that for the end consumer, we have to give them a complete and the big picture of what they buy. So it's combining the pre-sale and the post-sale transparency to build that trust. So thank you for, highlighting the fact that it's also truly a combination on technology, but human. It all starts with people. And I would like also to raise the fact that how to choose the best fashion items, it's also a responsibility for the brands to empower their clients with this kind of information. And for sure, a regulation will definitely push the brand to embrace all this transformation because it's critical, and knowing that, not going into too much technical information, but when they say we're going to be carbon neutral and so on, there are a lot of information which are emphasizing what they do on scope 1, so what they're able to control. But we have also, and the brand have also a true responsibility by empowering supplier in the emerging markets to help them to also proceed to this transformation and get the education to do it. And that's really important because we know that, and specifically in the fashion industry, 70 to 90% of the carbon footprint comes from the scope 3, so meaning the source, the material sourcing, and everything's done by supplier abroad. So that is really important, and your solution just raised the fact that now we have the ability to make a big change, to make a step forward, and it's just a matter of decision. I just would like to ask one question to you, Vanessa. We just saw that in the European markets, we have a new regulation, I think it's coming beginning of 2023, regarding home equipment on their level indicator of repairability. Do you think that this will be also a new regulation coming for the luxury goods?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's unfortunately, fashion has this very dubious place at the top of the negative externality kind of pyramid. Only fourth to, I think, cars, energy, and food. So if it's happening, if it's happening, in home appliances, which is arguably a little bit further down the chain, albeit not much, it's certainly coming to fashion for sure.
Thank you very much.
And I think we had a last question.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, it's a question for Fatou. you were talking about doing the leaders of tomorrow, and I was thinking about empowerment. Yeah, sorry. I was thinking about empowerment, and do you think that the future icons we need like to build the future icons of tomorrow and leads these icons to sustainability and all that themes actually?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Sorry.
Can you do it in French? Otherwise, I'll just translate it. Are you French?
In French? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Vous parliez justement de construire les leaders de demain. Et je me demandais si, selon vous, et surtout dans le secteur de la mode, on devait créer justement les futures icônes de demain et plus particulièrement adossé à toutes les problématiques liées à l'environnement, la seconde main.
Quand tu parles d'icônes, tu parles d'entrepreneurs?
Oui,
de créateurs? Okay. So the question is, do I believe we can help build the future designers of tomorrow and make them more impact-driven? I think my answer is I believe that designers nowadays have this knowledge. Well, actually, a part of the designers nowadays have the knowledge that there is change coming, there's change needed, and they need to do things differently. And actually, I've created the training program for entrepreneurs in the fashion industry, focused on sustainable products. And when we released the application, we had like hundreds of people wanted to join the program, and they were designers, but some of them were in reconversion, so doing another job before and turning into fashion, and they were all interested because it was sustainable design. And I feel like there is a need, but also because the market is there as well. As I said, 60% of people are buying because it's sustainable and they're ready to pay more. It's a business opportunity, but it's also a sustainable opportunity. So I believe that we don't need to do much for the new generation to get onto the trend and actually be better than us in the room. So we have young people, so actually I'm hopeful. Thank you for the question.
We are going to end this amazing conversation, but Fatou, we haven't taken the opportunity to hear a bit about the wonders, and I just would like to take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever we need, but to give you the opportunity to address what you do, because I think it's also important to make sure that everybody knows it.
Thank you. I actually started my career working on blockchain. I used to be the head of trade for KPMG in Australia and working on sustainability and traceability on different products, but I left that life behind, and it's funny because it's still coming to me because I started 4 years ago in social entrepreneurship, and I developed an NGO dedicated to empowering women, because I believe that there is a foundation of the future world that we need to live in and the future society. So we need to give them the place to do it. And by doing so, I created a training program for female entrepreneurs, helping them develop a sustainable business. I started a barter community for people to exchange goods, so circular economy, how do we exchange resources? You have an office with a lot of leftover tissues and fabrics, and I'm a designer and I need them, how about we barter and I'll do your design for your next collection. So I did that as well, and I'm also dedicating a whole day to female entrepreneurs and female leaders by creating the International Women of Impact Day, and we give away 77 trophies and awards to 77 women every year from all around France, doing amazing things, entrepreneurs, women working for companies. We have nurses and teachers that are changing the world, creating a better society. So really shedding light on women who do things and giving them the stage, the mic, like I'm having it today.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Very pleased to welcome you, and we will end the day with, these amazing insights, which are truly important for the future of the fashion industry. Thank you very much for joining here in Geneva or remotely. See you tomorrow. We start at 11 tomorrow with a startup pitch, and we have an amazing program again tomorrow. So please join us, come here again in Geneva, or join us remotely. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.